Jack had spent his life on the rugged plains working as a cowboy. The land was tough, the weather harsh, but he had learned to survive. He had no need for a family, no desire for the busy towns. His life was simple, just him and the land, with his horse as his only companion. Jack had seen a lot in his years, but nothing quite like the moment he found her. It was a hot, dry afternoon when Jack was riding his usual route through the plains, keeping an eye out for any wild animals or anything unusual. He had always been alert, ready for anything the land might throw at him. As he rode across the land, he noticed something strange. There in the distance, he saw a woman. She was tied up, lying in the dirt as if abandoned. His heart raced as he spurred his horse into action. When he reached her, he could see that she was barely alive. Her body was covered in dirt, her clothes torn, and she was bound tightly. The woman's eyes were half open, but they were filled with anger and pain. Jack's instincts kicked in, and without thinking, he jumped down from his horse and rushed to her side. "Hey there, miss, you're gonna be all right," Jack said gently as he knelt beside her, his hands working to untie the ropes that bound her. But as soon as he touched her, the woman hissed in pain, pulling away from him as best as she could. "Leave me," she whispered harshly, her voice full of anger. "You don't need to help me. I don't need your help." Jack frowned but didn't back off. "You're not going to make it out here alone. Let me help." The woman's eyes flashed with distrust, and she tried to pull away again, but the pain in her body was too much. Jack didn't want to argue. He simply grabbed her by the shoulders and helped her sit up. "You're safe now. I'm not going to hurt you," he said calmly. She didn't say anything, just looked at him with eyes full of suspicion. He could see the strength in her. She was tough, but right now she needed help, and she knew it. "Who did this to you?" Jack asked as he supported her weight, guiding her to his horse. The woman didn't answer. She didn't have to. Jack knew all too well that many were just as cruel to the native people as they had been to her. He'd seen it before, heard the stories. He didn't need to ask more questions. Once she was on the horse, Jack mounted and set off toward his camp. The ride was long and quiet, with only the sound of hooves and the wind breaking the silence. Jack's mind was racing, but he kept his thoughts to himself. He wasn't sure what to expect from this woman, but he knew one thing. He wasn't going to leave her to die in the wilderness. When they reached his camp, Jack helped her down from the horse and placed her gently on the ground. He went to work on cleaning her wounds, though she barely spoke, only glaring at him occasionally. She didn't trust him, and Jack could understand that. But he wasn't going to leave her in this state. He gave her water to drink and some food, though she refused at first. After a while, she ate a little, her pride still evident in the way she held herself. She wasn't used to accepting help from anyone, especially not a white man. The tension between them was palpable. "I don't need your help," she said, her voice sharp. "You think you're just like the others. You think I owe you something for this?" Jack looked at her with a steady gaze. "I'm not like the others," he said softly. "I don't want anything from you. I'm just trying to make sure you survive." She scoffed. "What do you know of survival?" She shot back. "What do you know of loss, of being left behind by your people? You don't understand." Jack paused, his mind going back to his own past, the loss of family, the struggle to make a living. But he didn't speak of it. This wasn't the time for his stories. Instead, he simply nodded. "I don't know what you've been through," he said, "but I do know that you need to heal. I'll stay here and make sure you're all right. When you're better, you can go." The woman didn't say anything for a while. She just stared at the fire, her eyes dark with thoughts Jack couldn't read. She didn't want to trust him, but something in her began to change. Maybe it was his sincerity, or maybe it was the fact that, despite her anger, Jack hadn't given up on her. Days passed, and Jack continued to care for her. He kept his distance when she needed it, but he was always there when she needed help. Slowly, she began to talk more, though it was never much. She told him her name, Lila, and explained in bits and pieces that she had lost everything. Her family, her home, her way of life, taken away by men who thought they were better than her people. "Why do you help me?" she asked one evening as they sat by the fire. "What do you want from me?" Jack looked at her, his face serious. "I don't want anything. I just don't want to see anyone suffer. Not like this." Lila was quiet, but Jack could see the conflict in her eyes. She was a proud woman, and pride was something Jack could understand. Still, he hoped that in time, she would realize that not all white men were like the ones who had wronged her. One evening, when Lila seemed to be feeling better, they sat together by the fire. Jack had made some food, and for the first time, she didn't hesitate to take a plate. It was a small moment, but Jack noticed it. He decided to ask her a question he had been thinking about for days. "Lila," he said, "what's your story? You don't have to tell me, but I want to know. I want to understand." She didn't look at him right away. Instead, she stared into the fire, her face hard with the weight of her past. When she spoke, her voice was low, barely above a whisper. "My people were taken," she said, her words heavy with pain. "My family was torn apart. And I was left to die. It's what always happens. White men like you, like them, always think they can take what they want. And then leave us." Jack's heart sank. He had heard the stories, of course, but hearing it from her was different. He had never realized the depth of what people like Lila had endured. He didn't have an answer, so he simply sat with her in silence, letting her words hang in the air. Over the next few days, as Lila's strength returned, the tension between them lessened. She still didn't trust him fully, but she accepted his help. It was a slow process, and Jack knew it would take time. He was patient, waiting for the walls she had built to slowly come down. The days turned into weeks, and while their relationship remained difficult, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he had made a real difference in her life. She might not have accepted it yet, but he had shown her a different kind of white man, one who didn't want anything in return. Just a cowboy trying to do what was right. As the days turned into weeks, Jack and Lila's relationship slowly shifted. At first, Lila had kept to herself, distant and wary of the cowboy who had saved her. But Jack didn't push her. He knew she had reasons for her anger and distrust, and he respected that. He worked quietly around camp, giving her the space she needed, while still providing the help she couldn't deny she needed. The camp became a place of routine, a safe haven in the middle of a vast and unforgiving land. Lila's wounds healed, and she started to regain some strength. Her body was recovering, but the pain from her past was still present in the way she looked at Jack sometimes, with a guardedness that never fully went away. One morning, as Jack was making breakfast, Lila approached him. For the first time in days, she didn't look away when he met her gaze. She still held her pride, but something was different. She had decided to speak. You did what most white men would never do," she said, her voice cautious but sincere. "You helped me when others would have left me to die." Jack stopped what he was doing and turned to her. "I told you before I'm not like the rest of them." Lila nodded, though there was still doubt in her eyes. She was trying to reconcile the reality of Jack's kindness with everything she had known about men like him. She had seen too much to let go of her mistrust so easily. But something had changed between them. Jack had never pushed her to talk, never made her feel weak for needing help. He had simply been there, day in and day out, doing the work without expecting anything in return. Slowly, Lila began to recognize that his actions were different from what she had feared. As the days passed, Lila found herself thinking about the things Jack had said to her. He had been honest with her from the start, even when she was rude or cold. And while she still had her pride, there was something about Jack's quiet strength that made her want to know more. She started to ask him questions, small things about his life, about his past. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Jack answered her questions honestly, though he didn't share everything. He spoke of his childhood, of growing up on the plains, and of his years as a cowboy. He told her of the things he had lost, his family, his home, and how he had learned to survive on his own. He didn't offer sympathy, but he did offer understanding. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Lila spoke again, her voice quieter than before. "I don't understand you," she said. "I don't understand why you're doing this. You could have left me behind like everyone else." Jack looked at her, his face unreadable. "Maybe I'm different than the others. Maybe I don't want to see someone suffer when I can do something about it." Lila's eyes searched his face as if looking for any sign of deceit, but she found none. For the first time, she realized that Jack wasn't just offering her help out of some obligation or selfish desire. He wasn't trying to change her or make her feel indebted to him. He was simply offering kindness without strings attached. Still, Lila wasn't ready to let go of her bitterness. The pain of losing her people, her family, was too fresh in her mind. She couldn't forget the atrocities that had been committed against her and her people. And though Jack had been kind, she wasn't sure she could forgive the world for what had been taken from her. But one thing was clear. Jack had shown her a side of humanity she hadn't expected. He had saved her life not because he had to, but because he chose to, and that choice had changed her. The weeks wore on, and as Lila grew stronger, the days became easier. The tension between her and Jack eased as well. She started to help him with camp tasks, cooking meals, and caring for the horses. It wasn't much, but it was a sign of trust. She didn't know if she would ever fully trust him, but she was willing to work alongside him, which was more than she had ever done for anyone else. One morning, Jack went out to check the perimeter of the camp. He wasn't gone long, but when he returned, he found Lila standing by the fire, her face tense and her eyes scanning the horizon. She looked different, stronger in a way, and Jack knew that she had made a decision. "I've decided to leave," Lila said, her voice steady but firm. "I can't stay here any longer. I need to go back to my people." Jack didn't say anything right away. He could see the determination in her eyes, but he also saw the uncertainty. She wasn't ready to leave, not really. She was just trying to push him away before he could do the same. "Lila," Jack said softly, "I can't stop you if that's what you want, but you're not ready to go back, not yet. And even if you were, it's not safe out there." She didn't reply, but the tension in her face eased just a little. Jack stepped closer, his voice gentle. "You've been through a lot. I can't pretend to know what it's like, but I do know that you don't have to do it alone." Lila looked at him, her eyes softening for the first time in weeks. "I'm not used to asking for help," she said quietly. Jack nodded. "You don't have to ask. I'll be here. I told you before, I'm not like the others, and I won't leave you." Lila stayed silent, her gaze lingering on Jack for a moment longer. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time she felt a flicker of hope. It was small, but it was there. As the days passed, Lila stayed at the camp. She still struggled with her past, with the hatred she felt for the world that had taken so much from her. But Jack's presence, his steady kindness, began to heal some of those old wounds. Slowly, she let go of the anger that had defined her life for so long. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Lila spoke again, her voice quieter than ever. "Thank you," she said simply. "For everything." Jack smiled, but he didn't say anything. He didn't need to. They both knew that the bond they had formed wasn't based on words. It was built on actions, on trust that had been earned over time. Lila wasn't ready to forgive the world, but she was learning to forgive herself. And with Jack's help, she was starting to believe that there might be something more out there for her, something beyond the pain and the loss. For the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe she could begin again,